Hi, I'm Tamara, and on this episode of How to Photograph Everything, I showcase how you can capture a whole variety of looks and feels by just switching up the angles and interacting in a really fun way. Oh, she finds you very interesting. What is he doing? Well, ask him. Hey! Okay. Okay. Now, okay, I just said you love her. Doesn't mean you can't look at me still. Oh my God. Thank you. Thank you so much. What happened? Do you mind laying down for a second?
Yes.
Oh, you do not mind or do you mind? Is it okay? It's okay. Okay. I'm you. Ready? I'm like this. Oh my Lord. And I'm going to be like this. Okay, how about here? This is your booty. It's soft. Right? Yep. And then you're lay back because I want all the color around you. Okay, so lay back. Where are you going? Would you like me to help you?
Yes.
Night night. So gentle. Put your hand behind your head. Say hi to it. It's really sad out here. Say hi! Louder. Oh, wow. Thanks, Zoe, for being so much fun to photograph. Now let's take these photos into On One Photo Raw 2019 and get to work. I had so much fun photographing this adorable girl and just really mixing up the way we photographed her, the gear we used, the color balance we used, the lens and the cameras, just bringing a lot of variety in a small space to just give a whole lot of variance in terms of what we were going to pull out of this shot. So pull out of these shots. So I'm here in Photo Raw 2020 and I'm looking at a number of images and coming up with ideas of things I can do. And I'm realizing that one of the things I want to look at is how to take an image and do a small correction to something that normally you really like. I really like this image. I'd photographed this with the Nikon D850. I was shooting over her mother's shoulder at the 200 millimeter focal length of the 70 to 200 f2.8 lens. And I was shooting this at about an f3.2 because I'm shooting with that longer end of the focal length and I'm close to my subject. I get quite a beautiful amount of bokeh around her, that really soft, blurred out kind of focus feel that can be lovely for portraits because you really get to see your subject and everything else falls out of focus. But if you can see right here, we have this issue where because I was shooting over a shoulder, I caught some sort of anything in the foreground, whether it's the hint from the reflector or just something off the fabric or whatever the case might be. This is not uncommon when you're kind of tucking between things to photograph, which I like to do a lot. And this can simply add to the image and be great, just this lovely kind of soft, hazy foreground. But you can also do things to try to correct or adjust somewhat. Here I'm going to jump into edit mode and specifically go into local adjustments. Localized adjustments, of course, being the option to just select a part of the image that you want to work on and shift something just on that part of the image. So if I click here and I go into add adjustment, I can run over here and click on the gradient tool, make a selection. Gradients are great for things like skies and water and all that sort of thing, but you can also use it from a portrait perspective to make adjustments to just one section of the portrait. In this case, I want to just affect this area down here where I'm going to make it a little bit darker. It comes in with this real natural lower exposure so you can see right away what's going on. If this is where we started, just by kind of coming down here a little bit, I'm breaking up some of that over brightness. I can then play with the contrast. You can see if I add more contrast or less contrast. Here I'm going to want to add a little bit more, again, to correct for that kind of soft, hazy feel. With the highlights, I can either go really dark or light. I'm going to go ahead and bring this down a little bit. I'm going to darken the highlights. And same thing with the shadows. I can lift the shadows here, which again was part of the issue, or I can go ahead and say I want to deepen those shadows. I have a lot of ability here to adjust. Of course, haze is a big aspect of what we're seeing here, so I could say, all right, let's take some of that haze out. And without doing much more at all, I'm kind of starting from here, if you look at this section specifically, and here, where I'm kind of cutting out some of that issue that's going on where it might catch my eye. It's subtle, but to me, very noticeable. So that's one thing I'd want to start with. I want to go back in here overall and jump back into effects and do kind of an overall feel for this portrait that I would like to adjust with tone enhancer. This is going to affect now everything. And I'm going to say in this image specifically, there's a couple things I'd like to see. I want the exposure to be just a little bit brighter overall. I want to be able to deepen some of these blacks, add a little bit more lovely contrast here. Overall, again, bringing up the contrast. I want to see little adjustments like that. I want to be able to go into dynamic contrast and do even more. Here, just selecting a natural contrast. I'm just going to bring the large down a little bit and the small up a little bit here. And for sure, I want to play with this lighting. I'm going to go into color enhancer, this wonderful ability to just kind of pull down and see what some great options might be. I find myself often wanting to just increase color just a little bit, having it pop up and down like that. Again, so all we've done is adjust a little bit here and then overall to the portrait, and we're seeing the difference between that and that. It's very subtle, but really, really cool. And the other thing I want to look at is portrait mode. Of course, since I'm photographing a portrait, I love how this grabs the face and lets you quickly make selections to the eyes, the mouth, the teeth, the skin. It grabbed the face already. It said, this is what we're working with, and I say yes. Let's do a very light amount of shifting here. She's got gorgeous skin, but you can see right away, it's just a nice kind of smoothing out effect that it has here right away. I'm going to go into eyes. It tells me right away to click on the center of each eye. It gives me a nice tool to do that, excuse me. So I can click right away. Oops. Let me undo that. If you haven't done this already, you can click in here. You can go into history and say to go back one, which is kind of nice. So here I can say, no, let me do this again. You go into eyes and then click here and click here. It automatically does this kind of whole situation where I can just drag it back. If I want to zoom in, I can go down here and zoom in if it feels like I can see it better that way. From my perspective, I can see it pretty easily here, so I don't have to bother with that. But that's kind of whatever you prefer. And so it quickly goes ahead and gives me this look. And if you could tell, without it and with it, if you're looking right at the eyes, you can see that. Let's exaggerate that a little bit. Not that I would ever do this to this beautiful child, but the difference with no effect and with a dramatic over effect. But I'll usually bring that down to right about here. She's got some really just gorgeous eyes that hang out at you anyway, so there's hardly anything I have to do there. And she's got very bright teeth, and I think her lips look great, so I'm not going to bother with the mouth option. If I wanted to enhance the color in her lips or brighten her teeth, that would be the selection I would make here. So let's going back here into this overall effects. Probably the last thing I want to do when I'm looking at the whole image is just do something in the way of that sunshine effect. I really love that sun glow. That's one of my favorite options here for portraits overall. So I would do something like this and then come down here. Let's check the previews. This is where we started. This is where we end. The biggest effect for me is that I'm managing some of this over here. Again, if you go into localized adjustments and you take it out, you can see the effect here. I just wanted to calm it down a little bit, not much more than that. And then overall just have this lovely pop and color come through. So there you go, another before and after using On1 Photo Raw 2020.